3 points title earner. He's on Grixis control, as he always is. He did win a Premier IQ last weekend with the deck, and he's decided to take the trip out here to do battle. And last time we saw Danny, we actually saw him playing against Infect. He was winning there, and it looks like he might be winning this game right now against Dawson Carson. He's got a Pia and Kieran Nalar, a couple Thopters out there, a Spellskite with a couple counters. Looks like they're Infect counters, though. And he's staring down, looks like just a Glistener Elf, though there is a Pendlehaven and an Inkmoth Nexus on the other side of the table.
Yeah, so the trouble with this matchup is that they might force you, the Infect deck might force the Grixis control deck to keep open mana because they have such explosive turns. They might just kill you in one turn out of nowhere. So a lot of the times you have to keep open mana for removal and then keep open additional mana for like dispels to counter their pump spells or their Apostle's Blessing or whatever. But if the Infect deck gives you a window to resolve something like Pia and Kieran, then you're in a good spot because you have 3 blockers. If you get to untap, you have the ability to just shock things at random. And I think Spellskite probably led to a lot of this.
Well, it looks like Pia and Kieran, along with a Thopter, are going to come into the battle, into the red zone, excuse me. Windswept Teeth will be sacrificed here by Carson at the end step. So he'll dig a land out of his deck. For Jessup in his hand, he does have a copy of Kolaghan's Command hanging out. I think there's also a Dispel in the grip. Carson going to search up a breeding pool. And then we're going to head back Dawson's way here in just a moment.
So how many twisted images do we have? How many clean answers to Spellskites?
For Mr. Carson, we got 3 twists in the board.
Okay.
And that's really a mainstay in the sideboard for Infect. It's clean against Spellskite, of course. And it's also got some other targets, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic in the mirror match. Both players generally have Spellskite and Noble Hierarch. And against Grixis, now that they have Jace Vryn's Prodigy, it's just kind of an auto-include. You should probably bring it in there. And they might have Spellskite, too.
Glistener Elf's feeling a little frisky. It's coming into the red zone. Looks like Jessup says, I'm just going to take it. And kind of the trick that I think players have learned against Infect, since we've seen Tom Ross play it so much, along with quite a few other players, is you don't fight it in combat, the creature.
No, that tends to end poorly, especially when your removal is damage-based. Because they can just, basically counter your Lightning Bolt with a Giant Growth, and then you end up taking a lot more damage. Better to just take the hit for 1 and then fight them at their end step.
Spellskite is on the stack. We'll see if this does resolve or if Jessup will have some responses.
He does have the Kolaghan's Command.
It looks like he's going to use the Kolaghan's Command. Destroy target artifact and perhaps make Dawson Carson discard. Now, Carson does have a couple copies of Vines of the Vastwood in hand. So he's got a few things to think about here, but he looks like he's going to let the Spellskite go.
Yeah, it's risky. I mean, I can imagine wanting to protect the Spellskite, but it's pretty easy for the Grixis control deck to just fire off another Kolaghan's Command.
Also, it looks like Jessup is just going upstairs with the Kolaghan's Command as far as dealing damage is concerned. We have seen Danny take some aggressive lines as far as burnout plans with this deck.
Well, your opponent has 8 life and 5 cards in hand. It's like, what's more important? Like, would you rather shock him down to 6 when you have Pia and 2 Thopters and a Spellskite you could potentially throw at him? Or would you rather just have him make him discard a card that's likely irrelevant?
And with Carson at 8, we could see something as simple as attack here for 4 and then throw 2 Thopters at you at the end of the game. Yeah, Carson's going to fall down to 4.
Yeah, so now do you just go for this or do you wait?
Steam Vents here from Jessup.
Well, now he has Dispel open, so.
Yeah, we're going to throw this at you and throw this at you, and that's going to do it. So Danny Jessup's going to tie things up here against Dawson Carson. Grixis control, Infect, all tied up at 1. With about 25 minutes here for players to shuffle up and get ready for game number 3. So we'll take a look at the sideboards here for both players. Again, we saw Jessup in this matchup yesterday, and he looked pretty confident with his sideboard, the use of Is Static Aster. We'll get to him in just a moment, though, since Carson is going to be on the play. So you'll find 2 Dispels, 3 Nature's Claims, a Spellskite, a Relic of Progenitus, 2 Spell Pierce, those 3 Twisted Images that we discussed a little bit earlier, an Apostle's Blessing, a Sylvan Library, which that can't not be a thing. It's actually a Sylvan Scrying.
Yep.
And then a Dismember, because this is modern, in fact, not legacy, in fact.
I was like, well, Sylvan Library would be good here, but it's not legal.
So that is a Sylvan Scrying,
yep.
Just so that you guys are aware.
So I like the Dispels. The Relic has a lot of play here. may or may not be worth bringing in. Spell Pierce is kind of the same, where like it could be good if you're forcing through a kill, but it's likely just a worse dispel because the games are probably going to go on pretty long. Twisted Image, now that Dawson has seen Spellskite out of Danny's deck, he doesn't know how many he has, but it's likely that he saw a Jason in an earlier game. So Twisted Image is probably pretty good here. The Apostle's Blessing, just another protection spell. Sylvan Scrying might be nice to have an additional way to find an Inkmoth Nexus, because that card does not get killed by sorcery speed removal. And Spellskite of your own is fine. It's a little risky against Kolagon's command.
Other sort of things here for Jessup: 3 Molten Rain, 2 Dispels, 2 Static Casters. A lot of one-ups here in Dreadbore, Risefall, Vandal Blast, Dark Blast, Thoughtseize, Spellskite, Nile Spellbomb, and Rending Volley.
A lot of good options here, and that's kind of what this Grixis sideboard is trying to do. Has a lot of different cards, but they're able to bring them in different matchups. So basically against most decks, you get to sideboard in like 6 or more cards. So he has 2 Dispel, 2 Izzet Staticaster, Risefall, Dark Blast, Thoughtseize, and Spellskite that I like. Molten Rain seems kind of nice because it kills Inkmoth Nexus, which is one of the problems, but you really don't want a 3-mana sorcery, especially when you're on the draw.
I could see that. I mean, I do agree with you that it is nice to be able to kill Inkmoth Nexus, but I also feel like you've got a pretty decent amount of answers to that card, too.
Yeah, the deck has a lot of removal, especially at instant speed, and if they're able to protect their Inkmoth with something like Vines of Vastwood, then you're probably going to die on their next turn.
Molten Rain, 3 copies in the sideboard for Danny. Just a lot of that card.
Yeah, just hates lands. Just wants to kill
so.
them. No, Tron and Amulet are very difficult matchups, and we saw him use them to pretty reasonable effect against Jund yesterday, against Tickle.
Yeah, no, they were perfectly fine there. The ability to actually redirect over to a Planeswalker, I probably don't give it enough credit. It probably comes up more than I think.
I've cast Molten Rain against them 3 or 4 times, and I've killed a Liliana with it once.
Okay.
So that seems maybe a little high, but even if it happens like 1 in 10 or 1 in 7 times, it's worth it.
And those are the options there for each player. They'll be shuffling up, getting ready for game number 3. So we will talk about the Star City Games YouTube page, where you can go back, you can watch replays of this Open Series event, along with all the other Open Series events. Our Versus Series that do take place on the Premium Select side of Star City Games, along with premium Magic Online videos, some of which done by Jerry Thompson, and then unboxings, other specialty content at youtube.com/Star City Games. Become one of over 80,000 subscribers. Again, that's youtube.com/Star City Games, as we get ready here for game number 3 between Danny Jessup and Dawson Carson. Infect versus Grixis Control. If you've noticed one thing here, as we've made it through almost 11 rounds of action, we have not seen really a lot of the same deck here this weekend.
A lot of different stuff. I mean, the exceptions are when we're watching the same player, I think.
Yes, that's really about it. It has just been a little bit of everything. Now, when we get that metagame breakdown for you guys being in the next round, we will take a look at everything, but this format is diverse as it's ever been. You see Dark Blast, the draw step there for Jessup to start the game off. Pretty good against a Glistener Elf.
That's a good one.
Yeah, not a bad start.
I bet Danny was thinking of a card.
It could be anything. He's going to start by sacrificing his Scalding Tarn. As I mentioned yesterday, I already have an unhealthy love for Dark Blast, given my Dredge days.
Yeah.
But it looks... when Dark Blast is good, it's completely busted. Jess, we're going to try to figure out what land he wants to get. We'll see if it's a Watery Grave. Yep.
Yeah, people, when they play against Infect, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, where the damage from the fetch dual mana bases are kind of a free roll. But we saw Danny go pretty low in one of the games, so he's got to be careful.
Yeah, you don't want to just throw away your life. That's for sure.
You know, make sure you're using it for a good reason.
And see, now as Dark Blast takes care of Glistener Elf, the problem here for Carson, too, is like just the threat of Dark Blast coming back turn after turn will probably influence the way he has to play the game. So, you know, if that were like a Lightning Bolt, it wouldn't be the end of the world because you could just play a Blighted Agent. But now, since there's a Dark Blast and Jessup can just stretch it back to kill a Blighted Agent, we might see him have to completely change the way he wants to play this game.
Yeah, I mean, before he even does anything, he might have to play out a Spellskite or a Wild Defiance, something along those lines.
Breeding Pool here from Carson. He's going to fall down to 17. He does have quite a few Spellskites. 2 in the main, another 1 in the board. A very important card, both for Infect and against it.
Yeah, and Pendlehaven helps too against Dark Blast.
Very true. Well, there's a Sylvan Scrying.
Would be much better if it was a Sylvan Library.
I'm inclined to agree. Here is an Inkmoth Nexus. So he's going to get things online. We've seen Sylvan Scrying in this deck before. A stray copy here or there. This is the new version. We're going to head back Jessup's way here in just a moment. He will dredge Dark Blast. It's a Lightning Bolt. A Serum Visions and a Kieran Nalaar.
So that's supposed to be a downside, you know?
The dredging?
Milling yourself for 3 cards.
Not in this deck. I want cards, my agree. This, as I watch the games play more here, and there's a polluted Delta. Leyline of the Void is insane against this deck.
It really is.
It's just incredible.
I mean, when these Grixis decks popped up with like their Gourmet Anglers and Kolagon's commands and whatnot, this was even before Jace Vryn's Prodigy was legal, but I started playing Leyline of the Void in my Jund deck because it was like, I cannot go toe-to-toe with these guys in a grindy game. You know, like the Grixis decks will just grind me out, and Leyline was the card that kind of just KO'd them.
Serum Visions here from Jessup. He'll scry 2. The cards he's looking at with the scry, Inquisition of Kozilek and Izzet Staticaster. Both very good cards. He's going to keep them both on top. Let's see what's next here. All right, now this is a big one. This is Wild Defiance. And this is a card that might make life very difficult for Jessup. Now, I know you're a Grixis Control veteran. How do you go about beating this thing?
Well, we're Grixis, so we don't have a lot of great ways to deal with enchantments. Yeah, that's about it. We're kind of dead.
That's the straightforward approach.
Leyline of the Void, very good. Wild Defiance, also very good.
Now, what's worth noting here is if you read the text on Wild Defiance, it says whenever a creature you control becomes a target of an instant or sorcery spell.
Yeah, so Staticaster is live.
Correct.
P and Kieran is live. Dark Blast, Lightning Bolt, not so great.
Yeah, those are off the table now. And it's their spell or your spell for what it's worth. So you can use it on offense or defense. Now we'll see an Inquisition of Kozilek. Pendlehaven, Windswept Teeth, Nature's Claim, Spell Pierce. Those are the cards here in Carson's hand.
Nature's Claim is interesting.
Well, I did see a Spellskite last game.
Yeah, I mean, he has the 3 Twisted Images. So Nature's Claim is like, wow, I'm really worried about Spellskites.
Yeah, maybe depending on what he's played against over the course of these 10 rounds thus far, he's probably seen a lot of Spellskites over the weekend.
Well, when you're playing Infect, it's pretty easy to just get burned by a Spellskite, too. It's like your opponent plays that, and your deck is based around targeting your creature a bunch of times with various pump spells, and Spellskite kind of just defeats that on its own.
I wouldn't be surprised at this point if he just preemptively sideboards against Spellskite every time,
yeah,
no matter what he's playing against.
I mean, anyone can play it. It's not great in something like Abzan, but it is a card that you can play and still do stuff with.
Yeah.
Especially since the Infect deck doesn't generally attack your life total.
Windswept Teeth here for Carson. Let's see what land he wants to search up.
And this might be game here. He has become immense. That's just like the clean 10 Infect.
Yeah, in combination with
the Wild Defiance.
With the Defiance, yeah. I guess Jessup's answer to this is
Dispel?
Is Dispel, yeah. If Carson's willing to go for it. It would have to have been a Become Immense top deck. Uh-oh. Here's an attack. This would be Xaxes. There is Become Immense. Delve away the entire graveyard. Jessup will look at his hand. Does he have Dispel? He does. So he is still alive here. Now, it'll still be 4 Infect, because Wild Defiance is still going to resolve. The spell doesn't have to resolve for Wild Defiance's ability to resolve. So it'll be 4 Infect. But fortunately for Danny Jessup, he did have a Dispel there, because that could have been lights out.
Yeah, and the Inquisition on the previous turn to take out the Spell Pierce.
Yep. Static Ash to the draw. Scalding Tarn the land.
So unfortunately for Danny, only has a Lightning Bolt and a Dark Blast left over.
Yep. He'll sacrifice the Scalding Tarn. Jessup is in a little bit of trouble here, though. Well, looks like he might be getting a Mountain out of the deck. And he will.
Ice Age Mountain.
I'm against it.
Yeah? You don't like it?
No. I don't like snow, man.
Fair enough.
Oh, we're getting aggro.
That's interesting because he has the Staticaster.
I'm a little surprised by that. I mean, I think the plan might be I want to just get aggressive on you and finish you off with like a Lightning Bolt.
Oh, is that a Pendelhaven? That's why.
Yeah. Yeah, the Staticaster, he saw the Pendelhaven with the discard spell.
Yeah. Just did not recognize the art. I don't even know what that's from.
What's interesting, though, is, I mean, I'm going to give Danny some credit here because I imagine he knows exactly how Wild Defiance does work.
Right.
But what's interesting is, if he just leaves the mana up and Carson just decides, okay, I'm going to attack activating Inkmoth Nexus, or activating Inkmoth Nexus, then activate Pendelhaven aggressively.
Yeah.
And Danny can just Staticaster it.
Yeah, so it feels like Danny's in a bad position, and he knows that. So there are two ways to go about it. You could hope that your opponent is a little bit careless with the Pendelhaven, gets a little too aggressive, and then you can get him with the Staticaster. Or you can try and win the race with Creeping Tar Pit, which at this point, with him having 6 Infect and Dawson having 11 life, that doesn't look like it's going to be the case.
Yeah, I don't think there's a race to be won here. Now he's going to take a look. Because if you haven't played against Wild Defiance, your assumption is anytime I try to target the creature, it's just going to get +3/+3, my stuff's not going to work, but it's
Right.
only instant or sorcery. It's not actually an ability from, Pendelhaven, for example. So maybe there's a tip off there with Jessup.
Oh, sure.
Like when he Pendelhaven his creature, it's like, oh, I only take 2 and not 5?
Well, 4, because the Pendelhaven would get countered.
Sure,
Right, but-
yeah. And maybe he's realized that now, because if you've not played against Wild Defiance before, it's a little counterintuitive.
Yeah, otherwise I'm sure there'd be some weirdo combo deck with Incores and Wild Defiance,
That's true. And there's a Black Cleave Cliffs. Yeah, I think he may have just realized, based off of that facial reaction, the mistake he made last turn.
Yep. Well, Wild Defiance was originally very popular in these decks, and then it kind of fell out of favor a little bit. Now it's making a comeback.
Spellskite was the draw. And we might see Carson lead with that. Give himself a nice amount of protection. And now the Staticaster plan's kind of off the table. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is going to be in response.
Yeah, so now Danny can play Staticaster and shoot the Blighted Agent. But the big issue is the Inkmoth Nexus that Dawson found off Sylvan Scrying.
And that Pendelhaven. Both are causing a real problem here. And I guess Wild Defiance. It's all bad.
Yes.
It's just all bad right now. Defiance is the real trump here because, this is a game where Jessup started with Dark Blast. And when you have Dark Blast against Affinity, or excuse me, against Infect, you're feeling pretty good about things. So here's a Staticaster.
Find your name, find your seats, so we get us going in a timely fashion.
I'm going to shoot Blighted Agent. Pendelhaven's going to go active very quickly. That's a 2/3. This will be an attack here for 3 Infect. It's going to bring Jessup up to 9. And Spellskite's in now, too.
Yeah, so now Danny needs to come up with an answer to 2 different Infect threats, one being a creature and one being a land.
Yep. Dispel's not exactly what the doctor ordered. Yeah, and that's going to do it. Dawson Carson's going to win this match over Danny Jessup 2-1. You can see Jessup's a little bit frustrated there. I think he realized the mistake he made with his Staticaster, trying to maybe go a little aggressive with the Creeping Tar Pit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would have worked out 100%.
Likewise. But with the way he scooped up his permanents, and you can kind of see the reaction here from him right now. little bit of frustration. So he moves down to 8-3 and is going to have to recompose himself here for the following rounds because he's still in top 8 contention.
Yeah, he's still in it.
Yeah. So this is all part of playing tournament Magic, man.